a championship which has eluded him since 2019. Of course, it's been such a tough, barren run since he suffered those career-threatening shoulder injuries in the opening Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez. He's been to dark places that only really Marc knows, both physically and mentally, in the 3 years since then. But this is all about him still showing that he's capable of winning championships, showing everybody, reminding everybody that he's the best rider in the planet. And now, Lewis, no excuses, because he's on the best bike.
I'm still rubbing my eyes a little bit to try and work out, are we at Ducati? How long is never in motorcycle racing? Well, we just found out. Marc Marquez is officially now a Gresini Ducati rider, and Gigi Dall'Igna will be watching very, very closely to see what Marc Marquez is up to. He's got a couple of more corners to get through before his first official time lap on board a Ducati begins, and there'll be many watching him and his lap times like a hawk through the day.
He's probably taken him, what now, 14 corners to realise. Now I know why Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia have been so darn good, so hard to beat. Yeah, I think many people thought hell would freeze over before we saw Marc Marquez riding a Ducati. Love to be inside that Gresini garage when he comes in for that initial first debrief. It has been a real tough last 2 or 3 years. We've seen him fight back, fight so hard to get himself mentally and physically back to his peak best. He feels like now he's the rider of pre-Jerez in 2020. Well, we will find out, won't we, next season. I wouldn't be surprised, to be perfectly honest, given how good he is, that if he didn't rock up to Qatar and win both the sprint and the Grand Prix. It is a big ask. He's kind of sort of playing down the expectations, but we heard it from Bagnaia and Martin, who were flanked either side of him in that Mandalika press conference where he was talking briefly about this transfer over to Ducati. Both of them believe he'll be a title contender.
You just need to look at previous years. You need to look at Enea Bastianini in 2022 for Gresini, challenged for the World Championship on a year-old bike. Marco Bezzecchi challenged for the MotoGP title for much of this year on a year-old bike. Marco's just making sure he stays out of the way of Raul Fernandez there on board the Aprilia. So Marc Marquez will fully expect to challenge for the World Championship this season. From Ducati's point of view, how do you improve on near perfection? Their motorcycle is so good. It's very difficult to improve upon it for the next season. So Marc Marquez is jumping on a GP23 that is nigh on the best motorcycle that's ever been put on a MotoGP circuit. And there'll be stages in the early parts of next season as Marc Marquez's first lap time on that Ducati is a 1:35.6. That the year-old bike will be perhaps more figured out and more competitive than the new bike, as we saw in the early parts of this season with Bezzecchi and, of course, Bastianini at the beginning of last year. So Marc Marquez is on a motorcycle that is well and truly figured out. He's just got to now figure it out himself.
Yeah, he's just pushing a few buttons in. Looking down the dashboard, there's obviously so many intricate systems you have to learn when you switch manufacturers as well. 15 riders finished on the podium, on the Grand Prix podium, 13 riders finished on the sprint podium, and 15 riders qualified in the front row. And some people have the cheek to say MotoGP was boring this year. 17 riders leading laps, 15 finishing on a Grand Prix podium. It was certainly wide open at times. It was dominated clearly by Ducati. And you've got the mouth-watering prospect. Hopefully, everything crossed here in the commentary box with the new concessions, the leg-ups that Honda and Yamaha have got next year, that they can also come back to the party, because we've seen certainly over the second half of the season, Lewis, Fabio Quartararo, what is not the most competitive M1 that's ever rolled out of the factory back in Iwata, at times has shown his class. When he's been the underdog, he's still just got his head down, fought like a lion, and probably put that Yamaha in places that it didn't really deserve to be.
Now, Quartararo was sensational for much of this year. So too was Marc Marquez. Davide Tardozzi, as keen as the rest of us to watch what Marc Marquez is up to as he cuts his first laps on this Gresini Ducati. Simon Crayfire is in pit lane for us and can give us a more detailed description of the Ducati that Marc Marquez is on. Simon, down to you.
Yes, it's a little noisy because something of interest, it's the first time I'm seeing a 24 spec Ducati head out on track, which is in the hands of Enea Bastianini. No one else has tried one yet, you know, Pramac or factory Ducati riders. So The Specker bike that Marc Marquez is on is, like we all know, the 23 spec gets passed on from Pramac and the Ducati factory boxes to the satellite teams, and so he's on one of those. But just to let you know a little bit more, he's setting-wise, it really makes sense. It's in the most popular setting I see, in the middle everywhere, you know, the middle of the swing arm, the middle of the steering head. He's got the the long Öhlins forks, which makes sense. You know, not a lot of the Ducati riders run them, but DG did. So I imagine they're out of his bike, you know, straight up. Yeah. For example, he has not got the start device, you know, the latest Ducati one that was on the 23 factory bikes, but they are still only in the Ducati factory and Pramac box.
Thanks very much for those updates, Simon. Always a beady eye down in pit lane. Marquez fastest on a Ducati. Hold your breath. It's Alex Marquez. Yeah, 1:30.369 on his last lap. Actually, has just put Alex Marquez, younger sibling, top of the timesheets. That's not a bad speed actually from Alex. Only done 5 laps in the chilly conditions here this morning in Valencia. This is lap number 5. Marquez. Lap 5 completed for Mark, 1:32.738. Of course, as you mentioned, Pecco, Marc Marquez saying he's looking forward to the opportunity to really pour over in detail the data of Martin and Bagnaia. But you flip that corner, and I'm sure those two are going to be very eager over the course of next season as well to see what Mark can bring to the Ducati, or how his riding style maybe can change the process or the dynamics of how you can get the best performance out of those Ducatis. On board then with the 93 up to turn 6. This is just what, second gear, about 100 kilometers an hour, and you attack hard then now through what's turn 7. It's more of a real fast kick up to 5th gear, approaching 250 kilometers an hour. Then coming now through this very tricky right hand. You've got to be careful here on the right hand side of that Michelin tyre. This is where Brad Binder and Jack Miller threw away the chance of a quick check. You can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screens, that's where we're at in terms of the times. But it's Alex Marquez that leads Maverick Vinales, Jorge Martin, Raul and Augusto Fernandez, and Fabio Quartararo, the top 6, the early 6 that have found sub 131 laps this morning in what are very chilly, breezy conditions here. Let's hope some of that cloud gets blown away and we get a bit of sunshine. I think I did read somewhere. Already. Top 10 already from Marc Marquez. I think I did read somewhere where we are going to get ambient temperature creep over 20 degrees. So 1:31.525 from Marc Marquez on his 6th lap of the session. Immediately fires him up inside the top 10.
So already in the first sector of this current lap, it's taken Marc Marquez 7 laps, or 6¼ laps, to set a red first sector. You're going to see a few of those.
Is he having a laugh? This is already, I mean, okay, yeah, the pace is a long way off where we saw here at the weekend. Maverick Vinales at a 1:28.931 to set pole position. The fastest lap of Sunday's Grand Prix was a 1:30.145 from Brad Binder. Alex Marquez at the top of the time sheet's only a couple of...
He will be grinning like a Cheshire cat under that crash helmet right now. So this is why they were dominating over the last few years, he'll be saying, under that crash helmet. We've got, of course, a Marquez pairing within the Gresini Ducati box. We might have a Marquez 1-2 in just a moment. So Marc Marquez has been on that Gresini Ducati for, what, all of 10 minutes now, and he crosses the line to set a 1:30.683, and he's into the top 3.
Is it already time to start queuing up the Jaws music for 2024 as he flicks into the first corner? I just wonder whether this might be the end of his first run, whether the instructions were, okay, let's just go out. 7 laps to kick off your Ducati career. Let's just salvo as a Ducati rider. Puts him immediately up into P3. That's ahead of Maverick Vinales and Jorge Martin. Quick check on the reigning world champion, Pecco Bagnaia, who did a short opening lap stint of 7 laps to begin the defence as his reign now as a double MotoGP World Champion. Bagnaia 131.505. Like a duck to water.
Did we expect anything else?
Hasn't taken him too long to find his groove, find his ting. Plenty more to come in 2024 then from Marc Marquez. The early signs, I think it's fair to say,
Here he comes.
Rather positive.
Yeah, he'll certainly settle for that. And that was the first run of what will be Marquez. Quick update on Pedro Acosta, incidentally. He has improved. He's down to a 132.258 now, the Moto2 World Champion. He's now put in 15 laps of this Valencia circuit, and he is out on track at the moment. If Pedro Acosta is anywhere around there, 1.5 to 2 seconds off by the end of the day, I think he'll be very happy with his day's work.
This man's going to be very happy. Would love to have the proper boom mic inside this Gresini garage right now as Marc Marquez plonks back into his seat.